if everybody likes you, you're not saying anything. Like you're not really like, and then also it's impossible. So you might as well just get up there as long as you're happy with what it is you're saying.
Yes.
That's the thing. Be yourself. Be like, bring what you like, whatever you bring to the table, make sure it's genuine.
What's up, everybody?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Coffee Breakup.
Starring
Christian Vieira
and Marvin Jones.
So if you're watching this, please like the video down below, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you're up to date with everything. We have a bunch of content that's coming out, and I don't even know what days are coming out anymore. So if you're not subscribed, you won't know either.
What's going on.
You won't know either. If you're on the go, listen to us on Spotify and iTunes, social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Website, coffeebreakup.com. When in doubt, go to the website. You'll find us everywhere.
Everything.
That being said,
nice little guest today, Brittany Brave. Did I say that right?
Yeah, yeah. You said it's Brittany Brave. But I also like Brittany Brave works too.
So do you know that he's German?
No.
Yeah,
there you go.
So I have an accent. You're gonna hear it here.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
what that accent is.
Okay, I just heard it hard. I love it.
Yeah, so certain words it'll come out.
Love it, love it. I'm Italian, and my grandmother my whole life would always be like, "It's not Brittany." She was always like, "It's Brittany, it's Brittany, Brittany." Yeah. So I was like, he must have spoken to my dead grandmother. Amazing. Yeah.
It's probably Italian too. You got Italian in you?
My mom.
Do you really?
My mom is Italian, actually.
There we go.
She has Italian in her family.
There we go. Get go son.
A little bit.
Pizza. I killed your sister. Yeah.
What's up, Brittany?
Nothing. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. I was watching. You're a comedian, right?
I am.
Full time?
Yes, for the most part.
Okay. How's that going?
Great. No, it's incredible. It's going very well, but you know that gap between your artistry, the compensation for your artistry, and the opportunities, trying to narrow that gap. I'm in it. I'm in the lather right now. I think I'm close, but I pay my bills through comedy for the most part. Let me say that for the most part.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we need 9 to 5s, so
yeah,
we need 9 to 5s, and then we're doing this.
Yeah, I legit just got fired from a 9 to 5, which is amazing.
Good.
Yeah.
That's just gonna light a fire under your butt for you to continue working harder.
Dude, best thing that happened. I had taken it out of like, I just kind of want some security. I want to just have this just so I can freely do comedy. And I knew it was a mistake, and it was just such a shit show. And literally when they fired me, I like tweeted a joke about it, went viral, got picked up on BuzzFeed, won the best comic thing. Like it was like, so I think the universe was like, one door closed and a whole mall open. So
it's like a garage door open.
Legit. Yeah. So yeah. And then it was like the wake up call I needed, that I was like, hey, even if you're broke or you're struggling, I think your focus just needs to be comedy right now, and like just push through.
Yeah,
and
go all in.
Yeah. So good thing. It's a good thing.
And I also think that we're in a generation where we have so much outlets that we can create.
Yeah.
And so like you had the tweet that went viral. Like say that 10 years ago and they're going to be like, what is it?
What does that mean?
What is this tweeter that people are talking about? You see, so like you had that, like now we have so much control to really dive into what we want to do. And we really do. I think it's as a comedian, I feel like as if it's a double-edged sword, right? Because I feel like now there's so many different ways you can go viral and you can break. But in the same token too, it's overwhelming as well too, because you kind of have to be present on all of these channels. But then again, the upside is like a TikTok could take off, a tweet could take off, you know, anything. Somebody could, or the traditional way, somebody sees you live and loves you, and then it goes from there. So yeah. Awesome. That's true.
So how long have you been in the business, in the industry?
In the biz.
In the biz.
Do they call that too for comedy?
I do. Yeah. Sometimes I do like weird shit, and I'm like, that's just showbiz, baby. And they're like, that's alcoholism, Brittany. Just kidding. No. I've been involved in comedy just about, and acting in some facet my entire life.
Okay.
I've been doing it for now 3 years, like, you know, casting the net to the wayside, gonna fully do this. But prior to comedy, I actually worked in the music business behind the scenes as a publicist and a manager. So I've been in the entertainment. I've done a lot of cocaine. That's what I'm trying to say. I've done.
Sums it up.
The only way.
I've lost a lot of morals. You know, I know a lot of people know. I would say 3 years has been doing it in the biz. In the biz. Yeah.
And do you think this is that's something you've fallen in now? Like this is what you want to do?
100%.
How'd you find yourself there? Like, what about like comedy? Did you just find yourself always being funny, or did something just say, or did you fall in love with it? You're like, I want to do this.
Yeah, I don't know the exact moment because my entire life I've been surrounded by comedy. Honestly, like I always gravitated towards it. I come from a really funny, eccentric family. We dealt with a lot of hard things and a lot of trauma by using comedy. Like we all have very great big senses of humor. And then just from an early age was a pain in the ass, was a ham. Like just always wanted, I was always throwing comedy shows and talk shows for my parents when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And my mom put me in dance. And then from there, that was it. But I mean, it took a second to kind of get real with myself about that wanting to be what I wanted to do for the rest of my life and what I can do, you know? I come from immigrant Italian parents who were very like, you need a safe job, pay your bills, do that.
Structured, so, almost like.
Structured,
do you think that's Italian, or you just think that that's the older generation? Because that's what we were raised on. Like, work, get married, buy a house, retire at 60, live off your pension or whatever's left. Like, that was the American dream at one point. Yeah. So maybe that wasn't just an Italian thing. It was more so.
I think you're right. I think it's older generations, immigrant generations, and I think it's just playing it safe. And it's because of the sacrifices that my mom and my dad and my grandparents and everybody made that I'm able to do this now. But I don't think, like my father, his dad passed away when he was 17, and then he had to take care of himself and his 5 siblings. So getting to be an artist wasn't really
true.
You know what I mean? Which it wasn't really on his radar. But that does trickle down. Like for a while, it took me a second to realize like I can do this. This is a real job. Why am I not doing this? You know? Right. Yeah.
Man, I'm happy you found your passion in comedy. Do you feel like it's traditionally more of like a male industry for the most part? There's a lot of male comedians. Is there not? Has that been hard for you kind of not breaking into it, but because they're all female comedians?
Or any challenges that maybe you've ran into because you're a woman?
100%. Really? Yeah, it's a boys club. It is, you know, and I think it has been. I definitely think that the tables are turning now when we're seeing more female voices being paid attention to and being heard. And I think people realize for a long time that there's only so long you can go listening to straight men talk about jerking off into their belly button. And you're like, we're going to need to hear something else.
We need to adjust.
There's another side of the story here. So what I really think is happening is the playing field's getting leveled now. Like it was male voices for so long. And now people are like, hey, there's a whole other side to, and non-binary and you know, all of these other things, everything. Yeah, it is. I think a lot of industries, I think our society has been male dominated. The people in power for a long time, the people getting paid the most have been men. And now I think, you know, if you're not opening your eyes to the fact that should be women, you're kind of getting left behind.
That is true.
You know,
get with it.
You sound ignorant. Yeah. Like whenever I hear women aren't funny, I'm like, where have you been? Like, what are you talking about?
I feel like that's what probably the consensus was before. It's like, well, why would I want to listen to a woman? Women aren't funny. Like they just cook and clean and stuff. Like that was like what it. 100%. Think about it. Like the old mindset. It's like no, she just doesn't do anything. She just stays there and looks pretty. Say anything.
Like, women were quiet in general. Like it was like, shut up, bitch. Like get in the kitchen. Like, but it was, and this was the tradition. Is like the man goes out to make the money. The woman stays home and just keeps the peace, cooks, cleans, raises the kids. And it's like she could be hilarious, but you're not giving her a chance to talk.
Or
like,
there's even the whole Harvey Weinstein thing where it's like he was taking advantage of all these women, and it's like this is just part of the industry. You just got to do it, and then they had to stay quiet. And you're like, if you look at it now, you're like, what the hell were you? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like, you took advantage all these years because women never had a voice. Women, they weren't being listened to. Nobody cared for what they had to. So it's like, oh, well, maybe we should start because look at all this other crap that one we're finding, and two, all the opportunities that like you become a comedian. Like no, back then no one would have even thought that would be.
They would have been like, what a harlot! Like,
who is she banging to get up there?
Who is she with that pink lipstick and those dirty jokes? But it's and to your point, and it's something that breaks my heart and I'm super passionate about, and I wish this for more women, not only in arts and entertainment but beyond. Like, don't be quiet. Come forward with this stuff, you know, and now is the time, and it's going to take a second to transition and for us to get comfortable. But yes, for that's why those movements were important, like Me Too and Time's Up and things like that. And there's a lot of opinions about it, and certain things got out of control. Nothing's ever clear in black and white.
I think there was it went to extremes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, we still need to have due process and open conversation and hear each other out. But to that point, it was like, yeah, for so long, women stayed quiet because even when we opened our mouths, we weren't believed. We were called crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's not right and it's not fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's extremely irritating. Can you imagine?
Back in not even back in the days. Until very recently, it was like,
2 years ago.
To say? Yeah, like where it's just like you wait the what you have to say weighs less than maybe the same thing that a man would say, just because of who you are, like as a person, gender. It's crazy. So I think the world that we live in now is changing so much. And
do you think that now? I mean, this is a little bit arrogant to ask because you know how now there's like it's not just
you're already so self-aware by saying that. I love you.
It's you know how there's like we were raised with two genders, like two sexes, a male and a female. And now it's like you can pick whatever you want to be. Do you think? And it sounds arrogant because I know that if I say, well, do you think that now they're choosing because it allows them to decide their future, or it's just like the whole natural of like, well, I feel like a man in a woman's body or vice versa. Like there's a lot of angles that I think that it can get taken.
I think so too. I can't fully speak to it because it's not something that I've personally experienced. But I would assume I would think it's probably both. It's now both, right? Being afforded the freedom more than ever to be whatever it is that you are.
To take control,
take control. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. And which is a great thing. And it's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable and it's going to be sloppy as we move in that direction. Sure. But the fact that we even have the choice.
Yeah.
The fact that women can even get on stage, because there was hundreds and hundreds of years ago, we couldn't. Or the fact that we do have the choice to be like, I'm not comfortable in this gender or in this body, and I want to be able to have the freedom to change that. That's already huge.
Did you ever face like any discouragement starting off? And how did you overcome that to say, well, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyways?
Yeah, I think we call that haters. No. If you ain't got haters, you ain't doing something right.
Look at me
now. They know who they are. Yeah, for sure. I remember first starting off in the scene, and people are mean. It's a mean scene and stuff like that. Like I definitely remember. I started in New York, which is
rough.
It's rough.
Yeah,
when did you first start? How old are you when you first started?
I mean, I started improv and sketch when I was I started acting in elementary school. Oh, wow. Improv in 6th grade, sketch in 6th grade. I've really been doing improv my whole life. And then stand-up I started very late 2017, but didn't really start doing it till mid 2018. So, yeah.
Forgive my ignorance. Improv is like when you just, what is improv? Like
unscripted.
Like just kind of going with, like
willy-nilly, the make-em-ups is what I call it.
Well, this guy, Carlos, when he was here, he used Who's Line It Anyway as an example. Who's Line It Anyway? Have you ever seen that?
No.
It's with, so the host is on the side, and then there's 4 people, and pretty much they have like different like sections or different segments, and they'll be like, oh, we're gonna do this on this segment, and then they'll read a card, and they're like, oh, what's something that you can say to your wife, but you can't say like to other people or whatever. So then like they'd go and they just like reenact certain like on the fly.
I feel like that is even the hard. Is that the hardest part of comedy, or
I think they're all hard for different reasons. Sure. It depends what comes naturally to you.
There's a level of creativity that you have to be like,
you got to be on the go.
I credit improv, like my focus right now is more on stand-up and acting and like producing and things like that. I credit improv for I feel like anytime I kill on stage, I'm like, it's because of those 15 years of improv. Just, I can handle anything.
You're comfortable,
I got
like on
it.
the fly.
You're comfortable, and I found my comedic voice through improv. So yeah, improv is any kind of comedy that's unscripted, basically. Got it. And then sketches like SNL, and then stand-up is obviously just solo, a comic, set up, punch, a little bit more of a persona.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know.
The more you know.
I had no idea, so I was, I've never really been too much into comedy in terms of like the stand-ups and all that stuff like that. So I was just curious how it works.
Well, it's great because you're meeting your new favorite comedian today, so it's amazing for you. Yeah,
I know. Excited.
I got him.
Yeah. So in terms of your career and trying to be this breakthrough comedian, and you are, you're doing great. How do relationships fit into that? Do you have? Because I would imagine you dedicate so much time and your craft.
Yeah, how much time do you dedicate to everything that you have to, especially now? Because I mean, you said you have 9 to 5, so you got to go all in now. So how much time are you actually putting into what you're doing now?
It's really not an exaggeration when I say it's almost every waking moment of my life.
Really, like that.
And my best friend the other day, I was saying I was feeling pretty like burnt out and almost to the point where like I was not like dreading getting on stage, but That's always scary. Like I would have shows at night and I was like, yeah, if this got canceled, I wouldn't be mad. You know what I mean? I would just love to go get dinner or something, you know, which is scary. And that's a sign that it's too much. But she just pointed it out and she's like, you work every day. And I'm like, no, she's like, you work 7 days a week though. Right. Like you're on stage every night. And when you're not on stage, you're writing or pitching yourself or making content or handling business. So as of right now, it's the best relation. It's a relationship. Sure, that's my relationship. And in the sense that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's also ruining my life. Like it's
true. But at the same time, it's when you look like 5 years into the, like you can't, but if you were like in 5 years.
Crack open those third eyes, baby.
If in 5 years, like think about it. If in 5 years you stay consistent and you look back, you're like, it's because like I'm here today. Because of having no life for a couple.
Yeah, I know it's going to pay off. I already see it paying off and things like that. Okay. And honestly, like I have just recently, romance has been such a distraction and I always notice that it like throws me off my game. And so even when things are going well with a guy or I'm happy or whatever, I feel like statistically it's going to take from other things.
Oh, no, yeah.
It has to. And for me, mentally, like, I'm like, I don't want that energy around me. I always notice it distracts me.
But what if you get like good content out of the relationship? Because a lot of comedians they talk about like their wife, their family, their kids, and all that stuff. So it's like maybe you get
always, but
new material.
I can also get new material by like going to Starbucks and like seeing some douchebag in line. You know what I mean? Like it's all material at some point.
I guess.
Yeah, and a lot of my comedy is about dating and sex and relationships and stuff like that. So I tell every guy whenever he's like, "Are you going to talk about me on stage?" I'm like, "Don't do something fucking weird," and I won't. Like, I'm like, "Don't be a douchebag," you know.
Yeah.
So are you currently dating or?
Yeah. She's with her work.
Right.
Other than
I have this lover.
Other than the work.
First name Stand, last name Up. You know, he's great. No, it's a woman. It's Stand Up. Get it? No. I'm not. There's nobody.
Okay.
And I love it.
Really?
Yeah. I just I've had a lot of like, my last relationship was 4 years ago now. 4 years ago. Okay. So I've been technically single. I've had versions of dating.
So right around the time where you actually started getting back into
to stand up, when I started doing stand up specifically, and when I started pursuing comedy full time, like really doing it.
So that's when things ended.
I think that's what we need to talk about. Okay. So then what happened so then you were in a relationship. How long was that relationship for?
3 years.
So what happened? Take us through from start to finish. Why, how'd you guys meet? What'd you guys go through? And then why'd you guys break up?
Yeah. So we met in the music business. I met in the music business. I was a publicist. He was a manager. And then we started working together. And then we started working together. You know what I mean?
Working overtime.
Yeah.
Working overtime. Right. Extracurriculars. Yeah. Right. He was older than me and very important relationship. The first person I consider myself to have been like in love with and really intimate with. Very important guy. But it was an abusive relationship. So physical, mental, and emotional abuse. So it didn't quite end the way a typical breakup is. You know, girls are like, we just said we parted ways, but I parted ways with a restraining order, and like, yeah. But to that token, it was the most important relationship in the sense that it really illuminated all of the things in my life that I was actually unhappy with, and when you go through something like that, it's going to force you to kind of like shed a layer of yourself. And one of the main things that I noticed was I wasn't doing any comedy when I was in that relationship, and I kind of hated my job and so on and so forth. So definitely left him catapulted into comedy. That was how that.
Do you think that because of that, you have a little bit of trauma of bringing somebody back in?
Totally.
Right?
I am like a rescue dog. Like I am like I joke about this all the time, but like when somebody gets too close, I'm like, it's very, and it's bigger than me. And I work on it, and I've gone to therapy. I've done everything to try and, but I don't think guys have to know when they're pursuing that with me, or if they're interested in something like that with me, it's going to come with this. I hate to say the word baggage because that has a negative connotation, but
but it's just like
damaged goods.
Do you disclose that when you meet somebody, or like, is that something you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an open book about it. I'm actually a big advocate for domestic violence, and I like to be the person that'll talk about it when other women won't. And I've seen talking about it on stage bring other women to come. It's great. I love being open about it. When it comes to a dating situation, I I reserve details until I think I can really
and you're
comfortable, right? Because again, like how we were talking earlier about women, like I've told guys that I've dated, and then I've seen I told a guy I dated a couple years ago in New York, and he goes, he went to jail. I go, well, yeah, he went to jail because you can't hit people and threaten to kill them and their parents. And like you can't do those things. And like, he goes, wow, he must hate you. And I was like, what? Like, and this was a guy I was dating and seeing for a couple months.
What an idiot.
Gee.
Idiot. But do you imagine how that makes you feel as a victim? When you hear that, you're like, wait, what?
The fact that I'm not affected directly from it, and I hear that, I'm like, how ignorant
do you have to be?
Someone be to say something like that?
Yeah, in general, objectively, that's a terrible response.
Yes.
Very bad.
Absolutely.
But that was one of the first guys that I really, really liked after my ex and was pretty consistently seeing. And I reserved those details until one night he asked, and he was like, what ended up happening with that? And I gave him the cliff notes. Like, I was like, listen, we don't talk because there's a government document in place that is keeping us 250 feet away from each other. And like, this is what the situation is. And to just immediately have the whole experience, like, oh, he went to jail, he must hate you. And I was like flabbergasted at dinner with him. I was like, what? I was like, I'm the one who should hate him, and I don't even hate him. Like, and he was like, yeah, no, it's bad. It's bad. I broke it off immediately.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Immediately. He's like, you want to go back to I was like, no, I got to go home. And the next day I called him and I was like, no, that's it. Can't, I
mean, obviously for good reason.
Yeah.
In that relationship with that domestic abuse, how long did you stay? Like, because a lot of people, they can't leave, or they don't have the courage.
Correct.
They feel afraid. What happened at that part in your life, in that relationship where you said, hey, listen, I want to remove myself from the situation? Was it immediately, or?
How long was the relationship for again?
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't, you're right about all of those things. It's incredibly hard to leave.
Of course.
You have somebody who is physically, mentally, and emotionally just completely taking advantage of you. So at that point too, when people, because there's a lot of misconceptions with that. Why didn't you leave? Why did you stay? Why did you let it happen? How could you stick around? All of these things, which again are so ignorant to say. And well, you're mentally and emotionally compromised. Like, I attempted leaving so many times. I also was in a situation with somebody who was abusive and manipulative. So the second I got 2 steps away, I got lassoed right back in, or he'd stalk me and find me and show up in my work or like whatever. And then before you know it, you're back in the cycle. So yeah, I would say it was like half the relationship. Like the first year and a half was just kind of like dealing with it and watching his patterns and learning who he was. And then the second year and a half was like, I think I gotta go. And I know I gotta go, but like how and should I? And you're in your head, and it's complicated.
In hindsight, do you see certain red flags that take you back? We're like, man, like, because obviously domestic violence, it's not from one day to another, right? So
no,
maybe certain signs where maybe they yell at you, or they call you certain names. They call you certain names, or something that takes you back. You're like, man, this is where I should have put my foot down and say, hey, listen, I won't tolerate this, or remove myself from the situation. Do you have those moments?
Yeah.
And answer that, but I'll have a piggyback question.
Absolutely. I definitely do. And they were all things that, listen, I was young. He was 17 years older than me. It was the first time I was in love with somebody.
Wait, but he was 17 years older than you?
16. Yeah. I was 24 and he was 40.
Dude, it's
Jesus.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They're 15?
No, I don't. That's
close, something like that.
I'm just thinking someone at that age to be acting.
To be that. Okay, Karen.
Oh, trust me. You're with my mom was like, excuse me? When I was like, he's like 38, 39. She's like, you're 24. Yeah. And I was like, she's like, what is he had a kid? My mom, my mom, she's like, why isn't he with his daughter? What is he doing running around New York City with his 24-year-old girlfriend? Like, so many things now that I'm like, oh, and it's, anyways,
right.
That's a red flag.
Okay.
But at the time, young men, you young boys, looking at you, all you young men, you fuck around, you don't know what you want. So it was refreshing to have an older guy come in and pursue and lead and wine and dine, and he knew what he wanted, and it was me, and blah blah blah, and that's what I gravitated towards, really.
Okay.
And he was great at his job. We were in the same, all these things, but yeah, tons of red flags, like tons of he had spoken negatively about his exes, like really, really badly, and was not on good terms with any of them. And one night he's like, oh, she's so dramatic and over emotional. Like she said she had to hide in the closet from me because like I was too much one night. Went right over my head.
You're there like.
I'm like, what?
Yeah,
you guys are playing hide and seek?
Oh my God. I want to play.
Yeah, like I was, but right over my head.
Okay.
Another night he was like drunk and crying, and he's like, you're gonna leave me one day. Like, and I was like, what do you? And he's like, he goes, you will leave me one day. I will lose you one day. And it was weird, but it was like little things. And then like the way we fought, like there was like one night where he was drunk and I was trying to get into my apartment and he slammed the door closed and slammed it on my hand. No. Yeah. And didn't care, saw my hand was there, slammed it shut. And I didn't even clock that as abuse. I was just like, oh, he's drunk and we're having a bad fight. Like it was just, and it wasn't until it started getting extreme. And then I was like, oh, this is, and you don't know, like everybody in your life is like, you're being abused. You're a victim of abuse. And you're like, am I? No, we just fight bad. It was just weird. I don't know, so.
You think it's always somebody else. Like, oh, I'm not, I'm in love. This is nothing. It's just
100%.
A rough night or,
like, how could it be abuse if like we had sex? Like we love each other.
We love each other.
We hang out. Like there's no way this could be abuse.
Look at the nice things he does. He says I'm his person. He wants to, oh my God, but so much of it is good. So much of it is positive. And it's like, and again, you're 100% right. You don't want to, nobody wants to look at themselves as a victim.
Yeah, that's another thing. Yeah,
you hear it and you're like, no,
like
you're being
word,
dramatic.
Like,
me?
No.
I'll
like,
never. I'm strong.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel good to yeah.
What I wanted to piggyback off of you was so he did show you these red flags, but did he ever share maybe any previous experiences outside of that, like actually for it to lead into the actual abuse that he was doing?
Do you mean previous experiences with other women?
Yes.
No, so no.
Like what triggered that abuse? Like what in him, like from one day to the next?
Yeah.
Like, what was he going through for that to commence?
Well, a lot of things. So for the most part, he kept most of his relationship history pretty much under wraps, and I didn't actually learn about it until after. Red flag, big time. Yeah. And there are things now that I would clock as a red flag from a mile away. Like the way somebody talks about their exes, not good. Like if it's like, she's fucking crazy, I hate her, she's insane, get her away from me. I feel like you should always leave a relationship and be able to at least still maintain some respect for the other person and be like, hey, it didn't work out. And maybe but everybody was crazy. Yeah. Everybody was insane. His ex was insane. He talked about a fight one night, but only told one side of the story with one of his exes. I don't even know. She threw like a wine bottle at me. She's insane. And then I later get like the police reports when I'm going through my shit with him. And like, he took her head and slammed it into a metal drawer. Like it was like, he only would tell you like
bits and pieces.
And then the exes that the worst shit happened to, I legitimately didn't know about. And I learned about from a background check. Yeah. My life was an episode of Law and Order, like legit. Laugh about it because it's funny. No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah,
it's dark is what it is. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I like almost passed out when like the background check got emailed to my phone, and this is after I had left and I was in all my.
I was already after the relationship.
I like ran to the bathroom and vomited. Like I swear to God, I was like, I need a minute. Like, yeah.
It's like a whole different person that you thought you were dating when in reality it was this monster.
I joke about it and I'm like, run background checks before you fuck people. And people are like, what? I'm like, I'm not kidding. Like before you get into it with people and commit to people, I'm like.
I've heard of that. People say, hey, like, especially maybe even when you get older, but even at our age now, like sometimes you don't even know these people. And if you date people that, friend circle, maybe you've known them for years, but if it's somebody that you have no connection to, I've heard of that. You're reading my mind. I was just about to say, especially in our culture now with dating apps or meeting people out or meeting people randomly, you have nobody to like reference. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
At least in a friend group, it gets back to you what happened. I had no reference point for him at all. He was like the first person I dated completely out of my friend circle. So he could be whoever he wanted to be. So could I. Yeah, like it could,
I mean, he was like 16 years older. There was no way he knew anybody of your friends, right? I mean,
yeah, and he knew what to hide, what to share.
It probably wasn't his first rodeo. No, yeah, you probably weren't.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
Unfortunately, I bet you somebody else is with him right now, probably going through the same thing, not knowing what they need to do.
Yeah, yeah.
That's like the scary part.
Yeah, because until you get that, I'm such a big advocate for it. It doesn't need to be therapy, but we all have to take care of ourselves.
100%.
We have to be self-aware. You have to deal with your shit. You have to own your shit. You know, face your demons face on. And until you do that, hurt people will hurt people. So to my knowledge, from what I know from one of his exes that I keep in touch with, nothing's really changed. It's not surprising.
But wait, how does she know about him?
And
they have a child together.
Oh.
I helped her with her custody battle, sending affidavits to prove that he was abusive. And she helped me with pressing charges and sending him to jail. And because we had affidavits just vouching for people.
Sure.
And all that kind of stuff. So we vaguely keep in touch. And it doesn't really seem like he's changed too much, which breaks my heart. And my concern really now is like, who else? Who's next?
Like,
what else?
How? So did we ever identify, like, did he ever seek help? Did he ever get some sort of like understanding, like what led what? No, not even so much apologizing, because he doesn't think he's wrong.
No.
My thing is, even in his head, like, did he ever say like, well, I'm like this because of this, or this is why I had to do these things, or I don't know. Like,
he did.
To him, what made sense to him?
He did, and he does come from, there is trauma in his background, and he did share that with me. But my issue with that is if you're comfortable enough telling people and you appear to have this understanding of the self of why it is you do this, then you need to also own your shit and go fix it. Like, that was the issue. It was like, well, my uncle molested and my dad left and all these different terrible things that happened. And this is why
every story in the book.
I just dealt with a guy who did this, who gave me a whole narrative of like, let me tell you why I am the way I am. And then I'm like, but what are you doing to fix it? Because then that's where it's manipulation. You're using it just to get away with your shit, but you have no intent to really change. You don't really feel bad.
Bro,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so frustrating. Imagine, like, I'm here trying to take advantage of you, and I'm like, but I told you I'm trauma, like my trauma.
That's it.
Trying to justify
that's legitimately it.
What do you do something about it then?
Yeah, well, you know what I've been through. And I'm like, well, look what you're putting me through. This is just a transfer of pain between like two people. That's it.
I always say it's what happened to you in the past. A lot of times it's not your responsibility, but it is your responsibility to fix who you are.
Preach.
And so you don't do the same thing to other people and cause that trauma. Because
Preach.
Everything happens to you in the past, you know, my family, my upbringing. Okay, cool. But how now you're aware of it, do something about it.
Do something about it.
If not, then now you keep doing this, repeating that cycle.
Don't let the consequence. Don't let your new person suffer the consequences from the last person.
Absolutely.
I say that all the time.
Yeah.
Like, if you're gonna start with someone brand new, clean slate, you don't know them. What on earth do they have to do with what your last relationship did to you? Now, I'm not saying that there's just trauma that you have to be careful with, but at the same time, let's say your ex would cheat on you all the time, and he decides to put his phone down or away or whatever. Where's your phone?
I know where this is going, and I love it.
Where is your phone? And
it's
like, what do you...
Like a trigger for that.
Have I ever given you any reason for whatever? Fix your hair a little bit. You're good, you're good.
Thank you.
So it's one of those things that it's like, I never gave you any reason for you to do that. Or I'm going to go hang out with my friends, and it's like, well, my ex used to cheat on me. I ain't your ex.
Right,
so
this is a totally different relationship.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's really tricky. And I just heard this quote the other day that was like, you're not afraid of new love, you're afraid of old pain. And that sent me into like, woo! I was like, I left the planet for 15 minutes after that. Like I was like, I need a tramp stamp of that on my body. Legitimately. Yeah. It's so, yes, 100%. And it's like, you have to take the person in the situation for what it is. Because then also, like, you're letting your ex win in a lot of ways. Like, if you still take out their behavior on the new person, like, joke's on you at that point. Like, at some point, it's like, but also, I understand the triggers too. Like, I have dated guys and been involved with guys. And when I see the weird, like, oh, I'm gonna whatever, I have to take a second to be like, okay, the behavior is triggering. Because it reminds me of something. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's another girl. So then what? I still have to gain control of my shit before I like, why are you letting your phone? What the fuck is that? Before whatever. Who is she? Who is that? Whatever. And but it's like, it takes a second to be like, and then that's also right. Find the right fucking person that you can be honest and vulnerable with about that and be like, hey, can I talk? I'm not saying you're doing anything, but do you ever notice that sometimes you do this or when you do that, maybe there's no intent there, but as your partner, I want to, this makes me uncomfortable. And then you're with the right person if they're like, okay.
Hey, this is what bothers me. Can we work on something?
Can we work on
Let's
it?
talk about it.
Right. How do I avoid that to make you have to be able to talk about it, but you got to slow yourself. I've dealt with it this year with guys like, what's he doing with his phone? What does that mean? What does that mean? And then I'm like, wait a minute. It doesn't mean it's what you went through before, so it's separating the trigger from the emotion, from the behavior, it's a lot.
It's hard.
I'm loaded with them from my last relationship, like loaded with them. And I have to be like, and like take a second. Yeah.
Man, and even this is happening to me now in my relationship, which is tremendous. But there are certain triggers sometimes that take me back to past experiences, and I feel so comfortable now with the person that I'm dating that I can bring this up. Hey, this is triggering me, or this is putting me back, taking me back. Now the key point is saying, not projecting that onto them,
correct,
making them feel some type of way. It's not their fault,
right?
But the fact that you're having that dialogue and saying, hey, this is making me feel some type of way, and then hopefully if you're with the right person, they can either give you reassurance, they walk you through it, they talk to you about it, and then that way you can overcome that specific instance, whatever it is. But projecting your past experiences and your past hurt on your current partner, making them feel some type of way, bad about it when they're not doing anything wrong, is also not the way to go.
They don't deserve that.
They don't deserve it.
No.
But you have to be able to speak up about it and say, this is how I feel. You're not responsible for how I feel, but you're my partner, and I like to keep you in the loop and tell you, hey, this is how I feel.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's self-awareness, it's healing with yourself too. Also, maybe sometimes you need to understand you're not ready to be in something quite yet. You're not really over it, and that's also fine. And like, I am just now realizing, like, I would have hated admitting this about myself even 6 months ago, but now I'm like owning it. Like, I require a lot. Like, when I'm going to get like romantic and intimate and close with somebody and vulnerable, like, I do require a lot. And like, I'm willing to now be upfront about that with the next guy that I start getting like close with or whatever. Be like, listen, like, I need a lot. I need a lot of transparency. I need a lot of things like that. And like, I'm a firm believer that when you're with the right person, they're not going to see that as a detriment, right? They're going to be like, okay, like, I know what you know what I mean? So
I also think that we're also in like this like time in our lives that we are more accepting of mental health and shining a light on mental health and how important it is to talk and discuss and open up about things, where before it's like, no, toughen up, or who cares,
get over it.
I think now that we're all kind of on the same boat, like, I don't think it's about toughening up. It's I have anxiety or I have depression. We should probably talk about this, not hide it. And I think if we're more open in that direction, then we can all embrace with each other, whether it's with your partner, your friend, or a professional. But if we can actually just open up and be comfortable with who we are, knowing that we need to talk about these things, then everything else is just going to fall into place.
Absolutely. I say that all the time. I joke about it in my stand-up. I'm like, depression is so in right now. I'm like, going to therapy is like the hottest club. Like, it's like, but
that's kind of true though.
It is. It's like you're in the freest time for all of that. But then, like, to that point to you too, like, it's like I encounter it with dating. Like, it's nobody really is open about their feelings. Myself included. There's even times now where I think I'm an over communicator, and then somebody, my friends will be like, why didn't you just tell him that? Why didn't you just tell him you have feelings for him? Or why didn't you just tell him you wanted it? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, we're all so like stunted with that.
I maybe some people are afraid of like oversharing and maybe saying something. Now this person is going to judge me or think of me differently. Right? If I'm saying that I feel this way about that person.
I think it's just transitioner. Like we're transitioning from never speaking about anything to getting comfortable. And we're now trying to force to get comfortable. Yeah. So some people are accepting, other people are not. And I think finding that balance, you're finding the right people where they stand. It's almost like freaking politics at this point. It's
it
like,
really
do we talk about it or do we not? Is it awkward? Am I going to ruin the freaking dinner that everyone's enjoying right now?
I completely agree. And it's the same thing in a political sense. And I'm not a political comic or really person or whatever. But like, even with this too, like, we need to start giving people and things grace a little bit, because we are in a super progressive time where we have the people that are resisting the change and holding back, but we have the people that are leading the charge and not scared to move forward, even if it's a radical way of doing things or a brand new way of doing things. And like, a little bit of grace for people will go a long way. Like how you said, like, we're going from one point to another. Like, let people get there when they get there. on their terms, give them a little grace, have conversation, be open about it. You know what I mean? Because there is so much change going on right now.
I'm just hoping that we're all can be accepting to it instead of, because the more we have people fighting against it, the harder it'll be over time, because then as time continues going on, there might be another change that we haven't even come up with. Like right now we're getting comfortable with speaking about mental health. Who knows what it's going to be in the next 10 years?
No, who knows?
If we still have people fighting this, just imagine how hard it's going to be to like start implementing more things that people don't agree with.
100%.
So it's a little bit difficult, but I'm hoping but we can come together.
Even the fact that we are sitting right here now and having this discussion 10, 15 years ago probably wouldn't be happening right now.
No.
So, I applaud you for overcoming, your past trauma, and you sound and you seem like you're accepting of it, and you're implementing those changes. Mm-hmm. I wanted to ask you, because you said that obviously you know what it takes for you in order to pursue dating down the line, or you seem focused on your career. Mm-hmm. You mentioned you're 30, right?
Yes.
What is next for you, like, in terms of the grand scheme of things? Like, do you believe in marriage? You want to get married? You want to have kids? Mm-hmm. I mean, in terms of, does that fit into your career path? I
definitely want all of those things. Okay. I want to be married. I want kids. I want all of those things. I don't think I've ever seen myself as being married or having kids at 30 anyways. Like, I never really saw that for myself anyways.
Okay.
Regardless of the fact that I'm in a very non-traditional career path.
True.
Right now.
Okay.
So I don't think I ever saw myself married before 30 with kids before 30, but it is a big thing for me. But I also know me, and I'm not going to want that or be ready for that or willing for that until I feel like my career is exactly, because I don't want to be one of those parents that's like weirdly taking it out on their kids or something, like, oh, I didn't get a chance to like
I understand.
live my life. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I want to be ready.
Do you feel like there's like because you are a woman and biologically speaking,
TikTok,
exactly,
yeah. Not the app, my eggs. Yeah. Right.
So do you feel some type of, because we can have kids in 10 years, right? No problem.
I don't want to have kids in 10 years.
Maybe.
How old are you guys?
We're 28. I turned 29.
29.
Nice. I'm the cougar here. Nice. Hey. Yeah. Trust me, I'm 30, but I'm like 75 on the inside. Like, I'm not even kidding.
Falling apart.
I'm like covered in Vicks Vapor Rub right now.
Like keeping it together.
Oh my God. I'm like, anybody have a Xanax? I'm a hooker with a heart of gold. Like, I'm like, it's past my bedtime. Yeah.
Do you feel like there is a pressure for you, like, that you have to have kids by a certain age?
And also, especially, coming from an Italian background, which it's really big culturally on family and stuff like that. Do you have that pressure as well? So now you have biological pressure, you have societal and the pressure.
I'm just about to crack, basically. Yeah. I'm unwell.
I'm like making it worse for her. She's like,
yeah. I don't feel like societal pressure. Like, fuck that. Like, I'll be a mom whenever, if I can still conceive. I don't give a shit. I also I would rather be, if I had a pick, I would love to be both, but I would definitely want to be a mom.